possibly the greatest motion picture ever made. Okay, we're going all the way back to 1975 to look at a motion picture that I have seen more than any other motion picture in my life. More than Halloween, more than Escape from New York, more than The Fog, more than Blade Runner, more than Star Wars, more than Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. We are talking about the one and only Jaws. Before we dig into this masterpiece anymore, before we go into this any further, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
The creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil, gave him jaws. This is Universal's extraordinary motion picture version of Peter Benchley's best-selling novel, Jaws.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous. But you let me go swimming anyway.
Barracuda. Dreyfuss. Huh? What? You yelled shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah. What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine. An eating machine. We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
Bad fish. But I'll catch him and kill him.
Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
This shark, swallow you whole. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons of them.
Hurry up, he's coming straight for us. Don't screw it up now. Don't wait for me. Now! Shoot!
Fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by the one and the only Steven Spielberg. Let's run the numbers. We talking about he did in 1941. He did Sugarland Express and The Color Purple and Indiana Jones 1, 2, 3, and well, we'll forgive him for 4. And Empire of the Sun, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Hook and Amistad and Minority Report and AI and Saving Private Ryan and Munich and Catch Me If You Can and Lincoln. And way back in the day, he did that little TV movie that was just awesome. It actually kind of creeps its head into this motion picture at the very tail end. Duel with Dennis Weaver. Oh yeah, you know it. Let's get moving. Okay, playing Martin Brody, the one, the only, Roy Scheider. Let's kick it. We're talking about he has been in things like the 7-Ups and Blue Thunder and 52 Pickup and Marathon Man and The French Connection in 2010, the year we made contact, pardon me, and All That Jazz and Still the Night and The Fourth War and Jaws 2, for better or for worse, you know, whatever. And The Outside Man, and on TV he was in Sequest DSV, if memory serves. So, big career, long career, was in a lot of really good shit. Just the way it goes. Like Matt Hooper! Richard Dreyfuss. Let's run the numbers. We're talking about he has been in little gems like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which you all know I love, and Mr. Holland's Opus, and The Goodbye Girl, which is criminally overlooked. Such a great little movie. And The Competition, and American Graffiti, and What About Bob, and Always, and Stakeout 1 and 2, and Down and Out in Beverly Hills, and Kippendorf's Tribe, The Big Fix, Night Falls on Manhattan. So, we're talking a long career that's been around since the early mid-70s. For God's sake, he's still going today. Is what it is. Let's keep moving. Playing Quint, the one, the only, Robert Shaw. Let's run the numbers. He was in things like Swashbuckler. He was in Force 10 from Navarone, and The Sting, and Black Sunday. Oh my God, From Russia with Love, and The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and The Deep, and A Man for All Seasons, for God's sakes, and A Battle of the Bulge, and Diamonds, and Robin and Marion, and Avalanche Express, Town Called Bastard. So, larger than life type figure. Is what it is. Died way too young, but guy's a legend. Playing Ellen Brody, Lorraine Gary. Not that big of a career, but let's get rolling. She was in Jaws 2, obviously. She was also in Jaws Revenge, and God, let's just forget that ever happened. And she popped up in 1941 in Car Wash, and I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, and tons of TV. Kojak, The Rookies, Marcus Wilby, Ironside, The FBI, Night Gallery, The Virginian, Macmillan and Wife, McCloud. So she was around and about a bit. I mean, her career didn't go into like legendary status, but when you think of Jaws, her face is going to pop into your head. And playing Mayor Larry Vaughn, the one and only Murray Hamilton. Let's do this. We're talking about he was in things like Brubaker, and The Amityville Horror, and The Graduate, and The Boston Strangler, and Casey's Shadow, in 1941, and massive amounts of TV. BJ and the Bear, Mama's Family, Kojak, Alice, McCloud, A Police Story, Barnaby Jones, Cannon, The FBI, The Fugitive, Dr. Kildare, The Doctors, Route 66. So, again, big career, a lot of credentials, is what it is. And there was also some other people in here that popped up, you know, that had things to do with either writers of the original book or whether they were writers of the screenplay, this motion picture. A lot of little people popped into this thing, but those are your stars. Let's keep on going. Okay, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. We can keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, so we can keep to where we'd much rather be, the summation, and we're going to have a whole bunch of fun there, if I can only speak today. Is what it is. So let's get going. The movie starts out, there's this girl, as we find out her name is Chrissie Watkins, and she's at this, I don't know, little hangout, get together, beer drinking, whatever it is, party on the side of the sea, and she's there, and she's interested in this one guy. So she decides she's going to go skinny dipping with this guy, and she leads him into the ocean where he blacks out, and he can't get to the ocean, he's just falling apart on the beach, and she goes into the water. Well, as one would have you find out, she doesn't really make it too far when she gets visited by a very large great white. Well, you never get to see it, but you know it's a shark. So, we move on. Next day, they're looking for this young Chrissie Watkins. The boy is there, and he's with a Chief Brody character that we got to meet with his wife and his kids a few seconds earlier, as it is. But they find Chrissie Watkins on the beach, and she does not look good. Next thing you know, they do a little bit of research, and the medical examiner says this is a shark attack. Well, he says, we're going to shut down the beaches, we're going to go crazy, you're just locking this up. This girl was attacked by a shark. Before you know it, though, the mayor says, you can't do that. The medical examiner says, I changed my mind, and we will be open because summer dollars are on the schedule. Anyway, before you know it, Chief Brody's out there on the beach. He's watching everything go down. He's a little bit nervous because he knows this girl was really killed by a shark, but he can't say anything, so he's just on patrol, sitting on the side of the beach. Before you know it, one young boy gets attacked by the great white shark, and his another dog, Pip-it, whatever, that doesn't make a difference, but he gets taken out. The dog gets taken out. Before you know it, all hell breaks loose. Everybody's like, what are we going to do? How are we going to shut this down? What are we going to do to make this take place? And before you know it, boom, they have a town meeting. And in the town meeting, one Quint shows up and he goes, I ain't going to do a $3,000 catch and kill on some shark. He goes, oh, I'll catch it, I'll kill it, but it's going to cost you 10. You want to be on welfare all winter? Then you give in to me. He leaves. Mayor gives in and says, hey, we're only going to shut down the beaches for 24 hours. Brody doesn't agree to that. Whatever. Before you know it, though, a young Matt Hooper from the Oceanographic Institute shows up to lend a hand. Except the locals don't really pay attention. And, well, nobody's really paying attention. Anyway, they catch a giant shark. It's a tiger shark. It is what it is. They think they got the master shark. It's not the master shark. It's the wrong goddamn shark. But nobody listens. Nobody wants to hear about it. Until a couple of days later, when Chief Brody's son and the mayor's and all of them are hanging out on the beach. And what do you know? A shark attacks again. It takes out this guy in a little teeny shitboat. Call it what you will. Anyway, the movie moves on. Vaughn gives in. He says, hire Quint. And they set out into the sweet by and by on a boat called the Orca, where they are going to go hunting down for one Carcarius, otherwise known as Bruce. Inside joke. And see if they can kill that great white shark. Along the times that they're out there, they have arguments, they have fights. There's a hell of a story by Quint. All hell breaks loose. The shark attacks the boat. Do they live? Do they kill it? You know the answers. I'm not going to tell to you. Anyway, let's get going to the summation. Okay, you know I'm amped up for this one, so let's just do it. Does Jaws work? Yes, Jaws works. Jaws is one of the greatest motion pictures, not even one of the greatest horror motion pictures, not even one of the greatest suspense motion pictures. Simply put, one of the greatest motion pictures ever made. Yes, the shark can look hokey by today's standards. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. The movie works. It's the way it goes. But let's get the big three out of the way. The directing. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful movies you could ever look at. It is. It just is. It's beautiful. It's a Steven Spielberg flick. The man was talented for when he was young. He was only 27 years old when he made this thing. It's amazing the eye and the techniques that he had. Capturing a scene, setting the tone, and even things like when he was doing those wipes, when bathers would walk by Chief Brody on the beach, and all of a sudden the next scene would be Brody here, and the person would go by and he'd be closer, and you'd be basically zooming on him. Great little techniques that are in this motion picture that just build tension, build on all that underlying drama, and they give it to you in loads. So the directing is amazing. I got to stop rambling. The writing is great. I could get into the whole Indianapolis speech and spend an hour on that in and of itself. But the writing is great. The dialogue, the character development. Oh my God, am I going to get into character development in a couple of minutes on this motion picture? It is what it is. Let's just keep going. The acting! Stop it. You got heavy hitters in this thing. I'm dead serious. You got Roy Scheider. Almost one of the most criminally sometimes forgotten or overlooked actors of the 70s and 80s, pardon me. I mean, this guy was incredible. Everything I ever seen him in, he was good in. So, I mean, whether it was playing in all that jazz, basically Bob Fosse, call it what you will, he was amazing. Whether it was this, he was amazing. The French Connection, you name it, the 7-Ups, for God's sakes. The guy was great. Richard Dreyfuss, track record speaks for itself. And, of course, Robert Shaw. Bigger than life. Demanded attention the minute you looked at the guy. That's all you need to know. And, of course, the rest of the cast. Murray Hamilton's great as the sleazy kind of friggin' mayor of the town who only cares about summer and $80. And Lorraine Gary really pulls off the wife job. So it is what it is. The rest of the people in this motion picture is a lot of locals and a lot of people that were like connected to the motion picture and shit like that. Whatever. It is what it is. The acting is top notch. Now let's get to why this motion picture works. Let me say one thing. The reason this motion picture works isn't because of the big shark. It ain't even because of the subject matter. If that was the case, then every movie with a shark would be a masterpiece. Everybody would remember The Meg. Everybody would remember Deep Blue Sea. Yeah. Everybody would remember all those other shark movies that didn't make a difference. The reason people remember Jaws is one thing. The characters you learn to know, the characters you learn to care about, and the development of those characters that you watch take place over 2 hours and change. Plain and simple. When you watch Chief Brody in there, you feel you get to know Chief Brody. You meet his family, you see the way they operate, you get to see his personality, and that develops. He's kind of the everyman in there. The Matt Hooper guy, you get to meet him, even though it's a little bit more into the motion picture, you get to meet him and know him. And through the brilliance of writing, you can tell what kind of guy he is, the way he thinks, the snarky comments, the way he operates. You know that guy within 20 minutes. You're like, okay, I know this guy, I know who he is, I know all about him, I know how he operates, I know somebody like him. It's just the way it is. And then you got Robert Shaw's Quint. Come on, knock off the shit. He's one of those larger-than-life characters in real life, and he was a larger-than-life character in this motion picture, but he is one of those characters that if you're in the right place at the right time in your life, you will definitely get to know. So, the brilliance of taking three characters, all radically different, none of them are perfect, and putting them together and seeing how they gel, and how they interact, and how they work through their problems, and how they work through this problem, is what 90% of Jaws is. Really. Yes, there's the terror of the shark. Yes, there's the unknown. Yes, there's the thrilling scenes where people are being attacked. But that is really just what adds in and around on this motion picture. If you took the characters out of this thing, if you took the character development, if you took all that away from it, you would have The Meg. You would have Deep Blue Sea. You would have all those other movies that were what they were, but they weren't this. And that's why this thing works. And by the way, let's get one thing out of the way. We've alluded to it before. One of the masterful scenes in this thing was Robert Shaw doing the Indianapolis speech. We know it. We've all heard it. We've all probably half of us can memorize the goddamn thing at this point. But it gives you an insight into a character that was almost comically, almost one-dimensional. And it showed you more of who he was. So that later on, when you've seen his mental breakdown happening, when, like, you know, he's like, okay, Brody, I'm going to drag it into the shallows. I'm going to drag it in. I'm going to drown him. I'm going to drown him. And everybody's like, thank God, get us the hell out of here. And he couldn't allow himself to do it. You realize why he became that guy. You understand what made him snap. And self-sabotage, basically them getting away. Why he had to push that engine too hard, why he had to blow it up so they had the one final, because there was an internal fight within that guy that was literally shown to you why it existed earlier. And now you understand it, why he has that breakdown. And it's that kind of thinking, it's that kind of writing that makes a motion picture like this legendary. Jaws, yes, great horror flick, great drama, great suspense, whatever. Characters. Characters. And as most of you know by now, the shark never really worked that great in the motion picture. It was hit with a lot of problems. You're talking about a mechanical shark in the ocean, trying to film under real conditions. Today this will all be CGI and fucking whatever. But back then you're talking about a real giant rubber shark with real mechanical gears and all this, trying to perform in the real ocean. It doesn't always work out that way. So, what you had was a motion picture that had to do what it had to do to continue. To sit there and film these scenes with the shark really absent, and that added so much to it. Spielberg himself says he would have screwed up Jaws if the shark worked perfectly day one. And he would have. Come on, the barrels, when you knew the shark was there but you didn't get to see it, they had to do that. But it made the movie better. The dock, when it got pulled out from the shore and came back in, built that suspense. It was supposed to be that way. But it made the movie better. And the fact that you never seen the shark when it actually attacked Chrissie Watkins in the beginning of the movie. You just seen her getting drowned in the water. It wasn't supposed to be that way. But it made it better. Because you didn't get to see what the monster was underneath. You didn't get to see what the creature was. And keep in mind, this is the mid-1970s. It's not like now. You didn't have Shark Week marathons on once a year that went ridiculous and ran for 7 days showing you everything you needed to know about sharks, including their goddamn gastric bypass surgeries. It didn't. No. It wasn't like that. It was a much different time, so you could get away with some of the shit that you got away with in this motion picture. And talking about getting away with shit in this motion picture, one of the things that Spielberg said, or was it Carpenter? No, I think Spielberg said too. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't make a difference who said it. It's true. The farther you can get a movie going, where everybody gets comfortable in the reality of the movie, when you throw in the unreal, people are going to buy it. They're going to go with you. The idea of the shark launching itself onto the back of a boat at the end and doing what it did, it's fucking laughable, really. And all, I mean, really. But, like Spielberg did say, now I remember, he said, if I got them in my hands for that long, they'll believe anything at the end. And that was true. And the whole thing with the air tank, which would never happen and never work, everybody believed it, everybody cheered, everybody went nuts. Because they knew enough, he knew enough, to hold off the insanity until the end of the motion picture. When you're like, people are so invested in these characters, I could have a UFO land right now, but everybody's going to be like, yeah. There's a few other odd notes that really needed to be brought out about this too. One, great editing. Great editing by Verna Fields. She was a legendary editor anyway, but she did this thing basically in her house and cut it together on an old piece of shit machine with a magnifying glass in front of it. So you got to give props to her. She did an amazing job building tension with the right cuts and all that. Of course, Spielberg was sitting next to her, but she really knew how to put a motion picture together. And finally, on top of that, what is Jaws without the score? Really, Jaws is one of the greatest scores ever written for a motion picture. If I say the movie Jaws, the first thing somebody has rolling around in their head is dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. You know it, I know it, we all know it. But there's also other scenes in there where they're having these moments where the music is so perfect. Like when they hit the shark and he's running. Jaws is running from the boat and they're trying to chase him down. And you can see all their faces turn from fear to like excitement. This is fun. Let's get him. And they're all chasing him. And that music kicks in. Almost like this whimsical type stuff. This fun time type stuff. This is what a score is meant to be. This is what a score is supposed to do. It takes a motion picture, lifts it higher, hides its flaws, and engulfs you in something that just blows your mind. By the way, fun note, when I was a kid, my mother bought me 2 8-track tapes. And yes, the one that I requested was the soundtrack to Jaws. The other one is a story for another day. Now, I have to point out any negatives. Are there any negatives in this motion picture? Honest to God, really, no. Other than the fact that, maybe the shark hasn't aged gracefully. Maybe the fact that they've made a bunch of sequels that the second one was at least tolerable. The other two were just, I don't even know what the hell was taking place. There really isn't that many negatives. If I watch it with the most finely tuned eye where I'm nitpicking on the most massive of level, maybe there's parts where I can see something like, I don't know if the continuity's lined up right there. I mean, Quint was 6 inches over. Then stupid shit. But on the whole, in reality's sake, you can't touch this thing. 2 little things I want to point out about this, or maybe 3. Movie's legacy that really needs to be pointed out. Honestly, there was a million shark copycat movies after that. Let's face reality, they all did. The only movie that was good, that was kind of biting off of this thing, was literally Orca. Which, again, had great character development, spent a lot of the times on the people instead of just the animals. I mean, you've seen a killer whale, so it ain't like they had to hide it that much. But Orca was a really good flick, and it was one of the first films I ever reviewed on this channel. Give that one a watch. Everything else, dah. 2, one of the things that they did brilliantly behind this motion picture was they did such marketing. It was one of the earliest motion pictures where they kept so much of the footage that they shot. They took so many photographs from behind the scenes that when the motion picture came out and everybody was in Jaws mania, they had all these things that they could put out there in book form to keep the frenzy, if you will, going amongst the fandom. You can get books on how Jaws was made. You can get books that showed you stuff behind the scenes. You can go, whatever it was, they had it and they kept it and they used it in the marketing. And I don't think any really motion picture was really doing that beforehand. Jaws really set off on giving that people the, hey, this is the greatest movie you'll ever see. And this is kind of how we did it. And it really wasn't that in vogue to do something like that back in those days. Okay, everybody, I know you've seen it. If you haven't, go down and check out Jaws. If you have, take a fun trip down memory lane and look at a masterpiece of directing by what is essentially a 27-year-old kid who had the balls to take on the world and make the most insane, most memorable horror flick of all times, possibly. The most marketed horror flick of all times, maybe other than maybe Michael Myers and Jason, who the hell knows. But whatever it is, he put it together, they made it, It's phenomenal, and it should never be forgotten, and it should never be overlooked. And again, I cannot stress enough, I have seen this motion picture well over 100 times. That's not even within question. I know that. It's the most watched movie in my life. And I still, to this day, if not every 6 months, whatever, I will sit there and put that in and be like, honey, it's Jaws time. And she'll be like, I know. It is what it is. Anyway, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be there for a friend. But most of all, never, and I mean absolutely ever, take any bullshit from anybody. See y'all soon.